Hello and welcome back to the Northern Lights Sportscast. Back again here with Dash and Cody, and we finally get to talk about the excitement of this year's NFL Draft. And today we are going to talk about the NFC side of the draft review. And we're going to start with the NFC North. We're going to head right into the Minnesota Vikings. And we're going to go down division winner all the way down to the bottom of each division. And just to put up here their draft class, the Vikings stood pat for their first round pick, which as a fan made me breathe a sigh of relief, and picked up their replacement for Adam Thielen, who they sent off to Carolina, or they released and Carolina signed in the offseason already. Jordan Addison out of USC, and then they got their some cornerback depth, some safety depth, some new defensive tackle, their project quarterback, which Dash will have something to say about, I know, and then what some would consider a steal at running back in the 7th round. Guys, what's your thoughts on the Vikings draft class?
I don't know. It's definitely very interesting. I mean, the first pick's pretty good, getting replacement wide receiver for Adam Thielen, as you know, the Vikings definitely need it. But you also have to hope at the same time that this doesn't turn into a like Laquan Treadwell type of situation as well. You got to make sure that he develops properly. But meanwhile, also, there's definitely been a pattern by Quezzy here for the Vikings in the sense that so many trades in the draft again. There are a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 picks this year the Vikings traded, whether it was last year or this year, that they could have had that they traded away. I don't know what the game plan is here, that they're eventually going to have like 20 picks in one draft to use, but it definitely makes me scratch my head a little bit.
Do we still have our first round for next year?
I believe so.
Yeah, I
I
believe
don't
you
think
do.
we traded away at all.
Well, I mean, you guys should have it this rate. You guys should have at least like 3 second rounders and quite a few mid round picks.
No, we usually just get mid rounds. That's it.
That was the Rick Spielman way. You mentioned that, Dash, and on screen here for all those to see, the only reason I mentioned they stood pat at round 1 is because they did not in any other round. Every other pick on the screen here has a trade image next to it. So, yeah, only the first round pick was not traded.
It's definitely got to sting a little bit for the Vikings because if they were just a few picks ahead, they could have gone with whatever wide receiver they wanted. But I feel like because of the run on wide receivers that happened ahead of them, they were left with only one first round level talent wide receiver left by the end of that. They didn't get to choose who they wanted.
I was going to say Johnston was still there and a couple others. Forget who the other two were.
Well, yeah,
we'll get to them later.
Yeah, we'll get to those guys later. But yeah, you had 3 wide receivers taken right before Jordan Addison.
Yeah. I don't know. Leading up to the draft, we amongst the 3 of us, we were talking a lot about who we thought the Vikings would draft in the first round, just given all the different things we've been hearing. I know I had been hearing a lot before the draft that I know that the Vikings were somehow going to trade up and draft a quarterback, which I thought was so outrageous because I had never had any reason to think Quezzy would ever do that. The team doesn't need to do it, so I didn't think they did. As much as this is a better QB draft than next year's draft, which we'll get into at probably at a later time, I didn't think they were going to trade up for QB. And I had heard very early in the process that Jordan Addison was a guy that the Vikings really liked at wide receiver. And after the draft, we had heard that, I'm sure teams tell this to players all the time, but when Addison visited the Vikings facility in Eagan, he really liked it. They really liked him. And they had told him that, hey, if you're available at 24, we're going to get you. We're not going to let you go. So I'm sure that happens a lot. But basically, probably something that a lot of Vikings executives could have predicted. I don't think it was a bad pick. I think that I'm hoping he's not a Laquan Treadwell. He doesn't seem to measure anything similar to Treadwell. So
I was gonna say it's kind of though interesting that he'll have to face up against a former teammate probably in rookie camps going on right now with his Mekhi Blackmon.
Yeah, Mekhi
Blackmon. From the sorry if I said that wrong, but yeah. It's going to be kind of interesting because I did see like the YouTube clip where they called Blackman, and he was just going like, "Yeah, I can't wait to play old Addison again. He's my guy, but I'll wreck his stuff." It was kind of fun to see they're friendly. Yeah.
One more thing before we move on, but I know Dash had mentioned this after the first 4 picks that the Vikings had made. The Vikings really like 3-letter schools because all their picks have 3-letter abbreviations for their school. They had 2 from USC, 2 from LSU, Jaron Hall from BYU, and Dwayne McBride from UAB. So, all right. In the interest of time, we're going to move on to the Lions. We got a lot to talk about with the Detroit Lions. And actually, let's start talking about their draft class and we'll get to the trade after that. The Lions had 8 picks this year. Something that we all thought was kind of interesting when they traded up. Wait, did they trade up or back? I think they traded up, right? They went up to 12, I think. Yeah.
Yes, because they were a few picks behind, and they traded up with Arizona, who had already traded back at that point.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking about. Okay. And they drafted a running back, Jahmyr Gibbs, who no one thought was going to get drafted until late into the second round at best.
Well, you kind of got to remember the only other running back was already selected by the Falcons.
Was he? I thought he was later.
No, Bijan Robinson was first.
Mm-hmm. He was the 8th pick, while just a second. Gibbs was 12th.
Yeah.
Okay.
Kitty goes meow.
Okay.
Hi, Kiki.
Mm-hmm. He knew we were talking about a cat team, so that's why he decided to come up here.
Yeah. The Lions were one of the few teams. I thought he would
be interested in the birds.
The Lions were one of the few teams to have a first-round pick, or have 2 first-round picks this year. One of them was their original pick, and the other one was a pick they traded up for. So,
their other first-round pick was, I think, a solid one. Jack Campbell, probably the best interior linebacker in the entire draft. Solid guy from Iowa. I think he'll definitely do a good job of anchoring that defense.
I kind of gotta say I'm pretty much impressed with this draft class. I am surprised by Gibbs being the first pick, but looking past Gibbs, they got Campbell, they got Laporta, they got Branch, one questionable hooker, but I kind of liked it. Yeah, this is, I would say the Campbell, Laporta, and Branch, a lot of people were like passing on them, and I would say they're pretty good players still.
I may have jumped with joy when Hooker went off the board to the Lions instead of the Vikings. So,
I mean, Laporta, very good replacement for T.J. Hawkinson. Brian Branch, probably the best safety in the entire draft, and trading him with the division rival to get him. And then Hendon Hooker. I mean, a lot. We'll get to that later, mister. But Hendon Hooker, it was definitely, kind of like a little bit of a head scratcher to wonder why the Lions went after him. You know, you figured that after this last season, Goff was going to be the long-term option, but now it starts to make you wonder, is he going to be the long-term option, or are they going to try to set their sights on Hendon Hooker, or is Hooker just going to be a backup?
Yeah.
Well, you kind of got to remember, Hooker was like, before he got hurt, he was a pretty good quarterback. He led.
Well, he probably would have been a first-round pick before that ACL tear.
I was going to say, didn't he lead Tennessee to beat Alabama, or was that the game he got hurt in? Okay.
Yeah, he got hurt in the second to last regular season game of the year in a loss against South Carolina.
Okay.
Yeah. And then you see that last pick there is a trade with the Eagles, and that's actually a good way to shift gears here. Let's talk briefly about that trade that Detroit and Philadelphia made during the draft. I want to say this was late in day 2 that they made this trade. Because we saw them make that pick for Jahmyr Gibbs on night 1, and we were all scratching or shaking our heads because we said, well, they got DeAndre Swift and Jamal Williams. Like, why do they have...
I wasn't really scratching my head because I kind of already heard the news that they were going to trade Swift.
Well, we didn't hear that immediately after that. We heard that, I thought that was the next day they traded that.
Well, I heard a rumor that they were going to get rid of Swift. That's the thing.
But it wasn't definite yet. But at the time, the only thing I could think of was yes, they needed a replacement for Jamal Williams because he went to New Orleans. But at the same time, they just got David Montgomery. Yeah. So you figure they have another future back there. So it's like, why would they get a third running back? Well, this is probably why.
Yep. Yeah. But very even trade, I felt like. They traded away DeAndre Swift and then their 7th round pick, number 249, and they received the Eagles' seventh rounder of 219, and then a 2025 fourth rounder from Philly. So fairly even trade, I feel like. And speaking of trades, we're going to move on to a different team that made a nice big trade before the draft even began, the Green Bay Packers. And I'm going to pull up the trade here and let Dash take it away. Go ahead, Dash.
I mean, yeah, it was months in the making. Green Bay and the Jets are taking forever to figure this out, or were people thinking that the Packers had leverage in this trade, or people thinking that the Jets had leverage in this trade, and it was just forever. But finally, they figured something out. The Packers and Jets swapped first round picks. The Packers also got a fifth round selection, or the Jets also got a fifth round selection in exchange. The Packers get the Jets second round and sixth round selections next year, along with the fact that that second rounder could be a first rounder next year, depending on if Aaron Rodgers plays a certain amount of snaps. Which overall, I like the trade. It's better to get than to get nothing out of this trade. So, and the fact that that second rounder, I think, is likely to be a first rounder next year is also pretty good.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with you on that one. Yeah.
Were you kind of upset with who they got with the one guy still on the board from Georgia? I forget his name.
Our first pick we got was Lucas Van Ness, defensive end out of Iowa, which kind of I scratched my head at first because I definitely did not expect him to be our first pick. I mean, he was a guy I kind of looked at, but I didn't know if we were going to go defensive end right off the bat. But I guess looking back on the situation, we definitely do need defensive end. I mean, Preston Smith, this is probably going to be his last year here. Rashawn Gary's going to be out for a little bit this season. So we definitely need some help with the defensive end position. And Lucas Van Ness definitely fits the mold there. And then, yes, as you were talking about, Cody, we get to the second round, and we know at this point the Packers are going to pick tight end at some point. It's just which one were they going to take. I was heavily favoring Darnell Washington, the tight end out of Georgia. But instead, the Packers first decided to take Luke Musgrave, the tight end out of Oregon State. Very good pass-catching tight end, very good downfield threat. I definitely like his mobility. So he'll be the good passing threat tight end that the Packers haven't had in over a decade. And then after that, Packers did a couple of trade backs. They had their 45th overall pick, but they traded with the Detroit Lions back 3 spots. Then they traded 2 more spots back, and they traded with Tampa Bay. So then eventually with the 50th overall pick, they got Jaden Reed, small, speedy wide receiver out of Michigan State. I like this pick as well. Kind of need a replacement for Randall Cobb, smaller slot guy, but Reed is also a very good deep threat. And then finally, the other big pick in the second day, in the third round, Tucker Kraft, tight end out of South Dakota State. I also love this pick as well. Tucker Kraft, very good run blocking tight end, but also can be a good pass catching threat, and he can break tackles. He is a very big man, tough guy to bring down. I definitely love all 3 of these players, and I think this offense is going to be young. It's going to be exciting, and I like what we have.
Cody. I have no comment.
It's fine. Nobody else wants to talk about us.
No, I was gonna say Tucker. I've seen Tucker Kraft in live action in person. I actually was standing a couple feet from him a couple of times. He was a very good player. He's a very good tight end, and I'm happy for you and also scared at the same time as a Vikings fan.
And
the only thing I did want to say. The only thing I did want to say is you guys got your next quarterback in Sean Clifford. So,
yeah, and that was another thing, but the thing was we had talked about this for a little while, and Packers fans had talked about it. Like, we're probably going to draft the quarterback this year just to be a backup because we needed something like that. When we got Rodgers, we needed a backup, so we drafted Matt Flynn with a 6th round pick, and he ended up being our backup for a while. So I think that's what this is with Sean Clifford, and then also getting big thing here, Anders Carlson, kicker out of Auburn, younger brother to Daniel Carlson, who is a great kicker in the NFL.
Oh, I didn't even know he was younger brother.
Yep, and that pretty much means the Mason Crosby era is over in Green Bay, which is kind of big news. And then on top of that, the Packers also did pick 2 more wide receivers as well. They got Grant DuBose out of Charlotte and Dontavian Wicks out of Virginia.
Yeah. Well, all right. In the interest of time, let's move to the last team in the NFC North, and this one will have to be fairly quick. But the Chicago Bears. Here's their draft class. They had 10 picks this year, so Decent size.
But their big news came outside of the draft, I believe.
Yeah, kind of.
Yep, but
they got DJ Moore. That's
well,
all
we'll
you
talk
need to
about
know.
that later. But yeah, a lot of trades for the Bears, as we were saying. A good variety of picks. They strengthened up their lines on both sides. They picked a running back in the 4th round.
Gonna have to be a David Montgomery replacement.
Yeah. They
Either that
picked
or
some defensive backs too. But
they did pick up from FCS a defensive end from Kennesaw State in the 7th round.
yes, they did. Yep.
And
Bell.
Yeah, and Darnell Wright, I think that's a good pick for them in the 1st round. Offensive tackle out of Tennessee. They need offensive line help for Justin Fields. I mean, he was running for his life last year. Behind that old line, they definitely need to bolster that for him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right. Well, we will talk about that trade they made a little bit later. So we're going to actually move to a different division now, and we're going to move to the NFC South. We're going to move to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They've had a lot of change in the offseason. Who wants to start? Actually, you know what? I'll take over for the start of their draft class. I love this. I was jumping for joy. Well, I didn't see it live, but afterwards, I was jumping for joy when, with their pick they got from the Lions, in the 2nd round, they picked North Dakota State offensive tackle Cody Mock. Cody can pretty much play almost any position on the offensive line. So while he was drafted as a tackle, he could very well play guard or center, even to an extent. I mean, he didn't play it in college, but he showed he could actually competently do it at the Senior Bowl. So, I don't know, really, really good pick. And then someone else who's really familiar to NDSU fans is Josh Hayes, who the Bucs picked in the 6th round, cornerback out of Kansas State. He transferred to Kansas State a couple of years back from NDSU. So, all right. Comments, guys.
It was a fun Friday night when we saw Cody Mock get drafted. If I didn't spoil it, but it was fun to see him go off. It was great night to see that happen. It was good for him. Everybody's gonna know his face with the orange long hair and the teeth missing. The other person I want to bring up is their 3rd round pick with Yaya. I can't say the last name. Diaby. But he seemed like a pretty good player at Louisville. He has a lot of talent there. Hopefully that will also turn around for them there.
I mean, we haven't even talked about the 1st round pick yet. Kalijah Cansey, a defensive lineman out of Pitt. And, they definitely need some help on the defense. They're losing a few guys this year. White might be on his way out, too, because he's requested a trade. And, yeah, they need to get some help there. Cansey should go well in the D-line with Vita Vea. And they also went with Pitt again in the 5th round, getting Zervaka Dennis. So definitely going after those Pitt players. But, yeah, as you guys, as we all know about Cody Mock, great offensive lineman from NDSU. And, this is definitely a big position of need for Tampa Bay. They lost a couple of guys in the O-line in free agency now, so they need to rebuild that O-line, and it could definitely help start out with Cody Mock.
Yeah.
Dash, are you still mad at me about spoiling that?
No, why would I be?
We will leave that story for some free time at some point. I'm sure y'all want to hear about that. But we're going to move over to the Carolina Panthers. And before we even look at their draft class, we're going to look at the big trade they made before it even started. Carolina and Chicago traded, which involved the 1st overall pick this year. The Panthers got the 1st overall pick, and they gave the Bears wide receiver DJ Moore, their number 9 overall pick this year in the 1st round, their number 61 overall pick this year in the 2nd round. They gave him a 2024 1st round, a 2025 2nd rounder. All for that 1st overall pick. Guys, what do you think about that?
I mean, we've seen this in years past where teams will do almost anything to trade up for that 1st overall spot. If they see a quarterback of the future, or just, I guess, any player of the future that they think can change their team. And there was a lot of teams that were on the market to possibly trade with the Chicago Bears for the first overall pick, since everybody knew Chicago wasn't going quarterback. So it was just a wonder of which team was going to do it. Carolina was up to the task. We knew that quarterback was a big issue for them last year. They had multiple starting quarterbacks last year. They had Baker Mayfield, TJ Walker, and Sam Darnold. Obviously, none of them are going to be the long-term option there. So they got to go with their quarterback of the future in Bryce Young. Did cost them their top receiver in DJ Moore, but they did replace Moore with Jonathan Mingo in the second round, wide receiver out of Ole Miss. So I think they should be okay. It's going to take a couple of years to fix this little kind of train wreck that they've been on for the last few years, but I think they might be on the right track now with Bryce Young, who is hopefully, if not, as good as, if not better, than the Cam Newton era for them.
I was about to say, like, ever since Super Bowl 50, the Panthers have not been a team at all. It's just been kind of downhill ever since then, and now seeing this pick and might be the start of the change, and hopefully maybe get all the way back to the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
I mean, this team has had a history of success of drafting quarterbacks in the first round. The other two quarterbacks that they picked, like I mentioned, Cam Newton, but also people forget Kerry Collins, who was their quarterback they selected in their first ever year as a team.
Huh.
And he led them to the NFC Championship in just their second season. So they've had a good history of picking quarterbacks in the first round.
Well, we'll see how it pans out for them. But, yeah, I have their brief and small draft class up on screen. Yeah, and definitely because of, all the things they traded away for that first overall pick. But I'm sure a lot of Panthers fans would say right now it's kind of worth it because they got the number 1 overall quarterback.
Well, they weren't going to get a quarterback or the quarterback that they wanted back at number 9. They had to get up higher.
Yeah, they were all gone. So,
no, not all of them.
No, you're right. But
I said the ones that they wanted,
yes,
Cody.
the ones they
not
wanted.
all the quarterbacks available. The ones that they wanted.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, now we're gonna head a little bit further southwest than the Panthers. We're gonna head to the New Orleans Saints. They this
the
year.
Stains?
They had 7 picks this year. Dash, you want to say a little bit about the Saints draft class this year?
Yeah, they definitely had an interesting draft class. I mean, we definitely know that the Saints recently have had very good luck in the draft, especially you go back to that 2017 legendary draft. I don't know if this one's going to live up to that hype, but they definitely do have some good players in there. The first pick, Brian Breesy, great story out of Clemson, just lost his younger sister last year to cancer, and it was just a big story with him last year, playing through the rest of that season, even after that loss, and still making it into the NFL as a first-round pick as a D tackle, and they're going to need that replacement for Marcus Davenport, who is gone. He's with the Vikings now, so they need to get a replacement there. So I think that was a good pick. They really emphasized defense. They also got Kendrick Miller, running back out of TCU, which definitely makes me raise some eyebrows a little bit, just because there's been talks, we talked about last year. Alvin Kamara could have possibly been traded, but he wasn't. So is this kind of a sign that they may be looking to move on from him after this year?
Yeah.
And then they also got Jake Hayner, quarterback from Fresno State, in the 4th round. I'm not going to say that he's going to be their long-term option, but it definitely, you never know if the cards could fall.
Yeah. They did sign Derek Carr, so it does seem they have at least a short-term option.
Yeah, and I knew about Carr, but I mean, you never, like I said, Carr might not have much left in the tank, and you never know what could happen after that.
Yeah, yep. Jake Hayner, I'm thinking Jake Hayner probably more of a project. Maybe he'll
absolutely.
He'll land
Absolutely.
And we all thought that of the 49ers quarterback last year. So,
one player that they actually got that's undrafted that really kind of piques my interest is a guy by the name of Malik Flowers, a return specialist from Montana. This guy lit up the FCS world like a Christmas tree when it came to returning kickoffs and punts. You could not stop him. He was the Devin Hester of the FCS, and I feel like he can make a day 1 impact in New Orleans as a return specialist.
Yes.
If they keep him.
I feel like they should. I mean, there's not a lot of guys who are labeled as return specialists in the NFL. If they're labeled that, they're pretty good at what
There's
they
a
do.
reason they are, yeah. All right. Well, Cody, got any last thoughts before we move on to the last team in the NFC South?
No, nothing really.
Okay. All right. On to the Atlanta Falcons. They hope to change it around this year, even though they only had 6 picks. But
Yeah, but the first pick definitely makes everybody wonder what is going on with them right now.
Yeah.
Yep. Jerry Jones wants a word with you.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, Bijan Robinson from Texas. Somebody that, around the three of us, we had speculated that maybe Jerry Jones will take him when the Cowboys had a pick, but just wasn't meant to be, it seems. Seems like the Falcons wanted him more. But, who do the Falcons have as their running backs?
Tyler Algier, who is, kind of a great story last year. He had over 1,000 yards, and Cordell Patterson.
Yeah.
Patterson's getting up there.
He is getting up there, unfortunately.
He is, but Algier is really young yet.
I was going to say, didn't they just pick up Algier last year? Or no?
I don't know. Maybe. Sounds
Algier,
like it.
he was a 5th round pick last year, so
Yep.
5th round rookie.
Yeah. Yep. I mean, other than that, they really strengthened up their O line a little bit. They picked 2 guards. Matthew Bergeron in the 2nd round and Jovan Gwynn in the 7th round. But other than that, some defensive additions.
A couple of interesting free agents pickups too, and they were a team that was kind of in the conversation of maybe they're the ones to trade up to get Bryce Young, but nope, they decided to stand pat, stay back. They're going to possibly try with Desmond Ridder next year, or they also picked up Taylor Heineke in free agency as well.
Yeah.
That's where Heineke went. Okay.
Yeah, no, you were trying to figure that out, weren't you, Cody?
I didn't know that. I didn't know that.
There you go.
But all right, let's head to the NFC West now. We're going to start with the division winner, the San Francisco 49ers. The Niners this year did have quite a few more picks than some of the other, I guess, playoff successes this year.
No first round or second rounder though. With that,
no, they did not. They had 3rd round and on. They had a lot of picks between the 3rd through 7th rounds. Who wants to start?
I can start. I mean, they also traded a lot of these picks away. Like they had a 1st round pick, they had 2 2nd round picks, all traded away. So kind of like Minnesota in a sense. They had a total of 8 draft picks traded away for this draft. But also their 2nd pick in the 3rd round, Jake Moody, kicker out of Michigan.
Yep.
That really threw me for a whirl. I did not think there was a kicker this year that could go on day 2, but I guess they like what they see in Jake Moody.
Apparently.
But yeah, but they definitely had the draft based on need. They drafted a lot of defensive back and linebacker because, boy, did they lose a lot of people this year. They lost Jimmy Ward, Emmanuel Mosley, Samson Ebukam, Aziz Al-Shaair, Mike McGlinchey, Tyler Croft, Jordan Willis. They lost a ton of players this offseason that could really help them. Yeah. So this is going to be an interesting season next year to see what they can do with what they have, and who is going to be their starting quarterback at the beginning of the year.
Yeah, that's a good question. But yeah, I agree with Dash a lot on that one. As far as the actual picks they had that they ended up making, only a couple of them ended up being affected by trades. The rest of them were all standstill or comp picks.
I think it's just because since they got so lucky with the very late Brock Purdy pick, they're just trying to rehash it all with very late picks this whole season. So,
because why not, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess let's move on then to the Seattle Seahawks. The Seahawks also had quite a few picks. They had 10 picks this year. They got the wide receiver that everyone was trying to look for this year in Jackson Smith and Jigba from Ohio State. They also got one of the top-rated cornerbacks with their 1st pick in the 1st round, Devin Witherspoon. Dash, you want to say a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, this was, last year's draft, they had an amazing draft. They got Woolen, and they got a bunch of other players who are definitely going to contribute for a long time on this team. And I think this draft is full of players that they're going to keep around for a while as well. Devin Witherspoon, probably the best quarter in the draft. I think he'll be amazing. It's picks like this that are going to help them rebuild that Legion of Boom that we saw. That Legion of Boom is definitely going to get rebuilt at this rate. And then also Jackson Smith and Jigba, great 1-2 punch with DK Metcalf. That should be, that offense should be very dangerous, especially with kind of Walker in the backfield as well.
Seahawks are coming after the 49ers this year.
Mm-hmm.
I will say that.
Yeah. We all thought the Seahawks would be down and out for a little while, and it doesn't seem like it's going that way. They also
Especially
got a running back in the mid to late second round too, Zach Charbonnet, from
and
UCLA.
7th.
So potentially, adding to their stable of running backs.
Yeah, because they lost Rashad Penny, so they needed another running back for Walker.
Yeah.
Well, they picked up one in the 7th too with Kenny McIntosh. I think that's how you say it.
Yeah.
Might be a competition to see who gets that position between those two.
Maybe, but I don't know. I see it a lot more like how the Vikings have done it in the last probably 5-6 years. They'll draft a running back in the 7th round, and he'll serve as like a really good practice squad option or like potentially a return specialist or something like that. They might turn him into something like that, but yeah, I don't know. I feel like the Seahawks did really good with their draft. I don't know. Recently, it seems like they've been doing a lot better in the draft than elsewhere. But I don't know. It seems like they're doing it the right way. It's working. So let's move on to a team in which it's really not working.
No.
The Los Angeles Rams. They had quite a few picks as well. This was the team I was telling Dash before the episode began. This is the team with the most picks. They had 14 picks this year. So they still don't have a first round pick, from the Matthew Stafford trade with Detroit a while back. So they had the second pick in the second round, Steve Avila, a guard out of TCU.
Very good player there.
Still, though, a lot of these trades were all marked, or a lot of these picks were all marked by trades, including their potential QB of the future in Stetson Bennett. I don't know. What do you think? What do you think, Cody and Dash?
I've talking to you guys about Stetson Bennett. You've been saying like he's just a good backup. Every time I said, "Do you guys think he's going to be a starter?" So I probably have to agree with you guys there, unless he's going to be training under Stafford, learning from him how to get injured or how to play. Yeah, sorry, I said that wrong. But unless they're planning on doing that, but who knows? Maybe he'll be the starter, and since Stafford always gets injured, but
I don't know.
So, I don't know who you were talking to, Cody, when you said, or when we were saying that he's never going to be starter in this league. I have never said that. I've always been the guy who has thought that Stetson Bennett deserves more of a chance than the media has been giving him. I think that he could be a very capable starter in the NFL, very good game managing quarterback, kind of like a Tom Brady type of quarterback, because we saw what he did at Georgia. I mean, yes, that team was talented, but you still need a quarterback to make that talent flow, and he did that and then some. It was just like what Joe Burrow did at LSU. I think Stetson Bennett definitely has an upside at the NFL level, and I just hope he gets that chance.
Must have been somebody else I'm talking to there. Sorry.
Yeah.
And then, Steve Avila, guard out of TCU, need to fix that O-line. It was unfortunately their first offensive line pick, or their first pick of the draft last year, whose offensive line Logan Bruss tore his ACL in the preseason, so he never had a chance. So, and then the injuries just kept coming on the O-line, so they need to fix that O-line immediately. Yeah. They also, real quick, I want to mention, picked a punter out of Wingate.
You beat me to it.
Dang it! I was gonna say
small college reference, and I'm gonna beat you guys to it.
Yeah, Wingate of Division 2.
Good old Ethan Evans.
Wingate of Division 2. Yeah. But
hey, that's where the punters go.
I guess. I don't know. I had to look that up when I was making these graphics because I didn't know where Wingate was. But yeah, I was going to mention that. Intriguing.
Where is it?
I don't remember where it is. I just knew it was in Division 2. But yeah, interesting to draft a punter. Very rarely you see teams draft a punter now these days. You often see them pick them up off the free agent market or even just wait to take the punters that'll be undrafted free agents. But yeah, pretty cool to see. All right, guys, we can move on.
Well, Nate, you were talking about the Rams, and you said when you were laughing earlier, talking about the Rams going in the wrong direction. Oh, baby, they got nothing on this next team.
Yeah, some of the Arizona Cardinals. Here's their draft class. They did have 9 picks this year, but I mean, I don't know. They traded back several
You
times in
can't
the
fix
first
what's
round.
broken right now.
Not. Yeah, you're right. They cannot fix what's broken right now.
They had the
Well,
where did Arizona's coach go?
Fiji.
No, Thailand.
Oh yeah, it was Thailand.
No,
You're
I
right.
thought I heard he came back, but he wasn't NFL. I thought he went to a college.
He's not
I
coaching
don't know.
anywhere. I didn't think right now.
Okay,
But
move on.
But yeah, that first overall pick with Paris Johnson Jr. They had the third overall pick, traded back with Houston to 12, then traded back up again to get Paris Johnson Jr., which they definitely need. Kyler Murray's been begging them to get offensive linemen, and now it looks like they finally got one.
Yeah.
I hopefully one of these guys know how to play COD with Kyler Murray. But
Start a clan.
yeah, they also picked up maybe Murray's backup or replacement in the 5th round with the QB from Houston, Clayton Tune. I have watched this guy. He didn't really have a very good last season, or if he, I don't remember that much, but Clayton is a good, I would say, a good quarterback and has led Houston into bowl games very well and other stuff.
Yeah, definitely quite a bit of players in the defensive end too. You know, they got B.J. Ojulari from LSU with their 2nd round pick. They also got Garrett Williams, a cornerback out of Syracuse with their first 3rd round pick. Their 5th round pick, they got inside linebacker Owen Papo from Auburn. I'm probably mispronouncing all these names, but I'm just gonna say their cornerback in the 6th round, Clark, out of Louisville, and then their last pick, Dante Stills, the defensive tackle out of West Virginia. All right. It's time to cheer up a little bit. The NFC West kind of brings us all down once we get to the bottom 2. So let's move over to the NFC East. We're going to move to the Super Bowl runner-up Philadelphia Eagles. And here's their draft class. Not really a ton of picks. You know, something you would expect, I suppose, from a really deep playoff team. They only got 7 picks in the stable this year. Quite a few of them were trades, but you guys want to tell us more about them?
Boy, their first pick, Jalen Carter, and that was a gamble, but I think it's going to be worth it. Carter dropped down the boards because of obviously the car accident that happened with the drag race back at Georgia, and he had a terrible showing at his pro day, which I think kind of was a result of what happened before that. So we didn't know how far Carter was going to fall down the board, so we knew he was going to fall. But the Eagles taking a chance on him. And we already know that they got a lot of Georgia players on that defense with Davis already on that D-line. And they also drafted Nolan Smith in the 1st round as well, another defensive player from Georgia. And then in the 4th round, they got Keely Ringo, a defensive back from Georgia. They are assembling the national championship Georgia defense in the NFL here.
Apparently.
And I think it's going to be terrifying.
It's just going to be the Bulldogs here soon. They're going to change the name from the Eagles.
The Philadelphia Bulldogs.
Well, and you know, something you talked, Dash, about how they took a gamble on Jalen Carter. Not only did they take a gamble, they traded up for him because that was the initial pick that the Bears got back from the Panthers in the trade for the 1st overall pick. So they traded up to 9 to get Jalen Carter.
It was one spot, too. Trade up one spot.
Yes, only
a lot of teams actually did that this year, I thought, where they just traded one spot up.
Yep.
Yeah.
But this was a big one right here.
Yeah. Yep. So, but yeah. Overall, a good draft class for a team that's hoping to return to the playoffs again next year and make a deep run. Now let's move to a team that just, hopes to, I guess, maybe make it more than one or 2 games into the playoffs. Dallas Cowboys. Here's their draft class. Something that shocked me when I put this one together, they really didn't have any trades for the actual picks they made. They traded picks away and such, but they didn't have any of these actual ones, which I found really interesting. But see, I was trying to remember. There was one of the guys they traded for, or one of the guys they picked was the son of a current executive inside the Cowboys. Do you guys remember who that is?
That would be Deuce Vaughn, running back out of Kansas State, who I personally think is one of the biggest steals in the NFL draft. They needed a replacement for Ezekiel Elliott. they got a much faster, smaller, and more versatile version of him.
Yeah. Instead of Bijan Robinson, they got Deuce Vaughn.
Mm-hmm. One thing I do like to mention about the Cowboys, though, I got a buddy of mine back at NDSU that you guys know who's a big Cowboys fan. We had talked about each of our team's drafts and how it went. He was not thrilled about what happened on the first night. The Cowboys were gung-ho on selecting a tight end in the first round, and more than likely they were going to go after Dalton Kincaid. And it was one pick away from being the Cowboys, and the Bills traded right over top of them to select Dalton Kincaid. So that means they had to switch plans, couldn't get a tight end. That night they got Mozzie Smith, who I think is a great pick. Mozzie Smith is an absolute monster in the middle of the defensive line. He will be a very good run stopper. But then they had to settle on Lucas Schoonmaker, tight end out of Michigan in the second round, which I think could still be a good tight end as well. But they really wanted Dalton Kincaid.
Yeah. Yep. They definitely got a lot of variety of different places on their team. You know, they did split it about roughly half and half with offense and defense. You know, with quite a few defenders between DeMarvin and Overshawn, the inside linebacker from Texas in the third round, the defensive end Valami. You know, I'm not gonna butcher his name.
Valami Fehoko.
Yeah, from San Diego State, and then Eric Scott Jr. out of Southern Miss, a cornerback in the 6th round. But they also got they got Deuce in late in the 6th round, and then they got a wide receiver out of South Carolina, Jalen Brooks, in the 7th round. You know, towards the end.
One of the guys who was undrafted, or one of their undrafted free agents, Hunter Lipke, fullback out of North Dakota State, one of the more versatile backfield guys in this draft that didn't even go drafted.
Yeah.
I think he can make a big impact.
I'm still sitting here shocked that he didn't get drafted by anybody and that there was a fullback drafted over him.
I don't know if I don't know. I guess it depends on what kind of fullback you're looking for. And but there was only one fullback taken in this entire draft, and that was towards the end of the 7th round.
Yep. Yeah. So I was just shocked by that. You know, I suppose, you know, I'm impartial. We're impartial a little bit. We got to watch him in person and just see how dominant he was. I think what hurt him the most is his shoulder injury he had towards the middle of this past season. It prevented him from going to the Senior Bowl. He eventually got to do his own pro day, but he did not. He was invited to the combine and didn't go. So it was just unfortunate kind of how it played out for him. I really think, like Dash said, going to be one of the biggest steals as an undrafted free agent. I think he's going to make a huge impact if he's given the opportunity. That was my only worry with the Cowboys, is that maybe he won't be given an opportunity. They love their running backs quite a bit, but you know, we've seen them have fullbacks in the past. So
yep, Dale Johnston.
Yep. So you know,
maybe they'll transform him into a running back. We don't know.
He could be. He's very much built to be a fullback, but he very much operated in a running back heavy scheme at North Dakota State.
It's not like he doesn't have breakaway speed either. We've seen him have multiple 40, 50-yard runs. And
he's got good hands as a pass catcher too. So he really can do everything to an extent. I mean, I don't know. I feel like he'd be a very big use from more than one position in a team. So we'll see how it plays out. I'll be curious to see what the Cowboys do with him. All right, let's move on to the third team in the NFC East, the New York Giants. And here's their draft class. Again, only 7 picks. Someone I want to highlight before I hand it over to Dash and Cody is I was surprised to see this guy go so late. John Michael Schmitz, the center out of Minnesota. As much as I'm not really a Gophers fan, hearing how much hype there was for him. You know, he was at the Senior Bowl too with obviously Cody Mock, who I was keeping an eye on. A lot of people were saying that John Michael Schmitz was the best center in the draft, and fell all the way towards the end of the 2nd round. I think that shocked a lot of people. So I don't know. Maybe there's something we don't know about him. Maybe it's just, you know, there wasn't the right fit for him in the 1st round. But that was kind of the biggest shock, I think, looking at the Giants draft class. Guys, you want to take it away?
I think the answer to your question there for the John Michael Schmitz thing, it's like Center's kind of an interesting position. It's not like where you can draft a guard or a tackle, kind of like we talked about Cody Mock earlier. He can play every position, so it's kind of easier to draft a guy like that. Whereas a center, not as many teams usually look for purebred centers in the draft, at least very early, unless there's like a legendary reason to pick them. And John Michael Schmitz is a great center, but it was just like, when is a team going to be looking for that? And the Giants definitely need offensive line help. That's why they picked him 57th overall. Now, another guy who I think really dropped as well is Jalen Hyatt, the wide receiver out of Tennessee. Very, very amazing wide receiver at Tennessee last year. Him and Hendon Hooker had great connections, made that offense hum. And I think, Jalen Hyatt definitely, they needed a new receiver after, the Kadarius Toney experiment failed. And Kenny Golladay, they finally released him. I'm sure Giants fans are very thankful about that. But now they got Jalen Hyatt. I think he'll be a great fit there.
Cody, he took your thing, didn't he?
Yep. Got nothing to say other than the Giants probably are going to look a lot better than what they were this last season, and they made it to the playoffs, beat the Vikings.
You know what, buddy? I'll let you take the command. I'll let you take the Commanders first, then.
Okay. Let me look who they picked. Let me look. Let me look.
All right. Well, I guess we're moving to the Commanders then.
I don't know anybody here.
Here I have them on screen here. Only one trade for a pick they actually made with Buffalo, but
the first pick was a pretty solid one in Emmanuel Forbes, I think.
Wait, they got somebody from Southern Illinois?
As undrafted, yeah.
Undrafted.
Okay, then what?
But
what's the S Illinois?
But as for the
safety from Illinois,
dumb.
Jartavius Martin, yeah, their mid-second round pick from Illinois. Cody can't read.
He made 31 teams. We were almost there. But anyway, as a whole for the Commanders draft, solid draft, I think. They didn't exactly go after anybody flashy. They're just drafting based on need, which, is what teams need to do sometimes. They don't need to go after anything big. They just need to pick what they need and just stick with that. But we all know the big news with the Commanders right now, and it's the fact that Dan Snyder, hallelujah, it is over. He has sold the team.
Yeah.
What am I doing? He doesn't deserve a salute.
Yeah, I was about to say.
The NFL decided they were not going to vote on the Commanders this month, so that'll happen next month potentially. But yeah, they're actually meeting today as we're recording this. They're meeting in Eagan, Minnesota, actually, spring meeting.
Mm-hmm.
But something I wanted to mention about the Commanders, you guys didn't really touch on. A lot of people thought that the Commanders could trade up and draft our quarterback because people didn't think they would trust the quarterbacks that they have. Because I didn't think they picked up anybody big this summer, did they?
No, but their big thing is that they're gonna. It sounds like they're gonna be going gung ho with Sam Howell. Yeah. But they actually did pick up a decent quarterback recently. They got Jacoby Brissett from Cleveland, who could also be a starting option.
I'm sure he'll tear his ACL the first time he steps on FedEx Field.
Whoa.
Let's not hope for that.
Yeah.
I don't hope for that. I fear that.
I mean, I get it. It happens.
But
don't worry. The Commanders are going to move to Vegas just like the A's and Raiders. And Vegas needs two teams, so.
Yeah. Oh, all right. Well, guys, you got any final thoughts on the Commanders draft? No?
Nope.
No
Said my piece.
No takers. All right. Any other thoughts in general as we close here? We got a few minutes here, so.
I had one note I wanted to mention for Detroit before we left them. One kind of a flashy undrafted pick that they had was Muhammad Ibrahim, running back out of Minnesota.
Yeah,
and
I didn't think of that.
It's definitely a wonder though if he's going to make the most use of his talents there, considering they just drafted Gibbs. But he could be a third back. We don't know.
Yeah.
But we saw a lot of him.
Cody?
Nothing really other than I was going to mention Adam Thielen going to the Panthers as a replacement for Moore, but you guys already kind of mentioned that earlier, so.
Yeah. Well, Adam Thielen was already there before they traded DJ Moore, but I understand what you're saying. All right. Well, thank you all for watching our 11th episode of the Northern Lights Sportscast, the NFC edition of the NFL Draft this year. Stay tuned and keep an eye out the next couple of days for our AFC edition. We'll see you next time.